That message of letting go is so powerful. And I have to tell you, in a week like this, a week that included the events of Wisconsin, I have to say I've wondered at times what it means for us to be focused on letting go, on release. And by events, I don't just mean the unbearable injustice brought upon Jacob Blake in front of his children, but even more, I mean the ways that we as a society are responding, represented in the face of that 17-year-old shooter feeling righteous and safe, or represented in the sign of the UU Church there, where on the marquee it spelled out Black Lives Matter, while the church stood behind it in flames. You may have, if you saw that posting, you may have read the response from the minister. He wrote that they were, of course, saddened by this fire terribly, but not as saddened as they were by the continued loss of Black lives at the hands of those who we hire to protect and serve. Sitting with this statement in the middle of our water communion week, I started to feel a kind of disconnect, and also the risk of focusing on letting go in this moment. The risk, especially for a majority white religious community. The risk and also the privilege. The risk that we would focus on letting go of the pain or the discomfort that we may be feeling rather than leaning in with empathy. Or the risk that, like my daughter, we would engage this Sunday of ritual as a way of wishing away things that, in order for them to actually end, let alone for the subsequent new beginning to come, will require in us the exact opposite of letting go. But then I had a moment, like a flash, reading some of the news reports where I found myself having this thought that at least now, I thought, the white folks whose passionate interest in racial justice was stirred after George Floyd's death, that interest that I've already started to see wane, at least now they will stay engaged. There's a kind of bitterness and cynicism in that thought, which doesn't mean it's not true. But it's the sort of bitterness and cynicism that the times that we live in both feed off of and feed. And so the challenge of our times is to feed something else, a different orientation of the heart, an orientation of openness, creativity, compassion, and joy, which is why we need this practice of releasing and why it matters so much right now. Because it's this practice, this intentional acknowledgement of what is ending and the release of what we are holding that will help us to stay connected both to what's happening around us and to the stake and responsibility that we have within us. It helps us to remain keeping it personal, which is our best hope for the new beginning that we long for. What I mean is keeping your heart open, creative, flexible, compassionate, joy-filled, while also remaining engaged and awake. It's not just not easy. It's countercultural. Everything around us encourages us to do the opposite, to close off, to dig in, to harden, to let go, as in to give up. But as the minister of that church in Wisconsin says, for us, this choice, it is a matter of religion. Love is the spirit of this church. We have been practicing and promising love in our congregation for nearly 125 years. And not just love, But we have been promising and practicing the movement of love, the always evolving ways of love with each new season of life, each new season of our church life. How we practice this promise has changed too. So that as life changes, so does the love's presence as it moves through us and with us. How we serve changes, what it means to dwell together changes, what peace means changes, how we seek truth changes, how we help each other changes. So that when we make these promises, it's not just a promise to somehow stick to the same ways of living them out forever, but rather to promise to be open to the changing ways of love and the call of truth as it continues to unfold. Which means as a community, we need to be experts at release. Not just as individuals, but as a whole community, letting go of all those things that would keep us from being open to the movement of love as it is calling us today. We need to be a community of letting go. So this is how we will end our water communion ritual this morning, by releasing as a whole community together.
From 8 sites across northern Colorado, we have brought together our shared water. We'll begin by naming the site and the body of water in which the waters were collected.
This water is from Equalizer Lake.
This water is from Windsor Lake.
Portner Reservoir in Fossil Creek Park.
Golden Meadows Pond in southeast Colorado. Southeast Fort Collins.
Cottonwood Glen.
Sheldon Lake in City Park.
Poudre River Water Park.
Spring Creek. We also recognize in this circle all of those whose lives live outside of northern Colorado and yet who are also a part of our community. In community, we bear witness to the whole of life, all of our stages and ages, for our sorrows and pain, and for our celebrations and gifts. We make space for the grief that life has in its endings, and we help each other release into new beginnings.
The coming together of our water calls us now into a ritual of collective release. What within us as a whole community do we need to let go of in order to make space for what is emerging within us? What way of seeing ourselves or way of understanding the world or our place in it do we need to release?
What is keeping us safe, as in protected, and in turn is keeping us from our deeper purposes? What do we need to give up in order to live into the fullness of our mission and vision here and now?
As we bring the water together, we will invite your reflection on your answer to these questions.
I release the notion that we are separate from each other and from the earth.
I release my perfectionist view of life.
Releasing worry of what will be.
We release discomfort in asking for help.
I release that church is a building and that I see most of my fellow congregants on Sunday at that building only.
I release stories of scarcity, the idea that we don't have what we need.
I release worrying what I look like on Zoom.
I release the fear of the future.
I release this idea that I should know or be able to control somehow what's coming next.
We welcome your answers now into the chat around this same question. What do we together need to release or give up in order to receive?
Spirit of life, help to release ourselves from all that we have been, all that has been in us and around us.
We release trusting that our grief is held by a greater community, a community that knows us and loves us even beyond our own choosing. And as our waters are mingled together, may these things we have carried be transformed and healed. May we be transformed and healed, letting go both as individuals and as a whole community.
Open our hearts all the way. Open us to possibility, to creativity, to understanding, to peace. Release us overflowing into grace.
And in this opening, may we in turn guide others every day in small ways and across systems to a similar sort of opening and healing, giving permission for all that has ended to be held and seen, and inviting together a shared release to all that keeps us stuck, all that holds us in violence and in prejudice, all that keeps us from knowing the underlying truth that we are each beloved and that we belong to each other and to this earth.
As we conclude our ceremony, we end here with the reaffirmation of our covenant. For those here and at home, we invite us all to remember that at heart, these words are a promise to be open to the ways we are called to live out these promises now.
Let us all join together now in the words of our covenant that begin with the word love.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Amen.